Okay, so for 40S students, okay, last week, okay, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week, on our class website, I have recordings for every day of last week. And every day of last week, we continued this advanced classes example along. You can even see that I recorded a little bit about it. So by Friday, we were looking at abstraction, right? And how that worked. And now for this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I anticipate that's also what we'll be doing. And I will be putting links to recordings each week. Now, it may be that we don't have to go all the way to Friday. I actually anticipate that. That will probably be done by maybe Wednesday or even Thursday. But if we have to go till Friday, that's fine, right? So that's where we are, and that's where our example is going to continue. If we look at our checklist for this unit, it's been a huge unit of content. And now we're down to the last two concepts. Having completed abstract classes last week, we're now going to look at something called an interface and then something called generics. So that also includes our vocabulary list. So there isn't much left to deal with in terms of this giant unit of stuff we've been looking at. Okay, so we did last week look at the food abstract class and made an apple and made a steak. And we incorporated it into the high school and the person class. We incorporated that stuff in there so that that stuff was being used by these other classes. So our diagram has huge now of all the classes we've incorporated and all the concepts we've incorporated. So here you can see this from last week, that we made an apple object. Apple comes from the food class. It's a child of the food class. We made a steak object. Steak also came from the food class. The food class is an abstract class. You cannot instantiate it, but you can instantiate the children of the food class because it is not an abstract class. And then we called a special consume method, which uses a food object as a parameter, and it uses polymorphism. I'm not sharing my screen. I thought I was sharing my screen. So you're just seeing me talking. Why is it this class I always do that for? Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so apple class, steak class, and the consume method. All right, it's okay. I hadn't started coding yet. It's not okay, but it is what it is. All right, so today what we're going to look at is we're going to look at what is called a interface in Java. The interface, what it is in Java, okay? So let me start with a bit of a presentation on this, okay? So this is in the notes if you need it. And so what an interface is, let me explain a little bit of this, okay? It's kind of like a class, but it's not. An interface is even more like an abstract class because an interface can only contain method signatures. In other words, no body to the method at all, which, as you might remember, was what our food class had. If you look back to the food class, it had these abstract methods which had no body to them. They just ended in a semicolon. They had no content to them. So an interface is like that. An interface contains essentially abstract methods, but that's all it can contain. It cannot contain regular methods, okay? So to create this, you create it using the interface keyword. But here's how I want you guys to build this. I want you to right-click on the package name, advanced classes, where we've been putting all these classes that we've been making since the beginning of this unit. Starting with the person class, we've been building all these classes. So we're going to build another one. Right-click, new. But what we're not going to put in there is a Java class. It is not a class we're putting in there. What we're going to be putting in is a Java interface. Okay, so it's not a class, it's an interface. Let's do this. Right click, new Java class. Whoops. Cancel. Sorry, right click, new Java interface. Now, interfaces are named like classes, so they're going to have the capital letter. And what I want you to call this interface is sports. with a capital S. So just like a class, interface is named with a capital letter, and it's going to be called sports. So go ahead and hit finish. You will notice in NetBeans in the project navigator, it uses a slightly different icon. So it doesn't look like the class one. It looks a little bit different. The class ones have the like little picture of a square, a circle, and a triangle or a diamond. And this one just has this thing that almost looks like a little key beside it. You will also notice when the code comes in for interface, instead of the word class, it switched it with the word interface. Okay, so this is what I wanted you to add. I wanted you to add this thing called an interface to your project. Now, a little bit about interfaces. I'm going to cheat and copy and paste a big comment in here for this. Okay, basically what I had in that slide there. But I want you to think of an interface as a simple analogy here. Think of it as a set of rules. Okay? I'm going to put that over in the testing class as well. An interface thought of as a set of rules. Okay? That's a way to think of it, a simpler way to think of it. Okay? Like a class, but only contains method signature. They're like abstract methods. They're like abstract methods, but you don't have to use the word abstract. You don't have to even use that word in interfaces. You don't have to use that word abstract. They just are abstract. Okay. So it's like a class. It's this set of rules. Okay. Now, what else did I put in that comment? So it's an interface is a category of abstract concepts. It's even more abstract than an abstract class. It can be thought of as a set of rules. It can only contain these method signatures. So no method body, only the name, the return type, and parameters. It can also contain these properties, but we'll get into that a little bit later. That's not a big deal. Okay. It uses the interface modifier. You saw that right here. So that word instead of class. This is important. You cannot create instances of an interface. Okay. So I'm going to put that in here. Put a period. Interfaces, they cannot be instantiated. Remember, what that means is made into objects. So I couldn't say like sports equals new sports. I can't do that with an interface. Just like I couldn't do it with an abstract class. I can't do that. Like abstract classes. I cannot make them into objects. Okay, they can't be instantiated. Okay, so then like an abstract class, okay, you must have another kind of like a child class. It's like a child class, but it's going to use the word implements the interface. Okay, so I'm going to put that in this comment here. Like abstract class, interfaces are used by child like classes that implement the interface. And And the way you can think of that is these classes follow the rules of the interface. Because remember I said the interface was the set of rules. So if you think of an interface as a set of rules, and then another class follows those rules, that's what an interface is essentially for, okay? It's like setting up a set of rules for other classes to follow. In a way, it's kind of like a abstract class, but it's even more abstract. All right, so let's actually put some code in this. The good news that you might be wondering is how much code is almost very little to no code. So we're gonna make a method signature here, void, set opponent. Actually, we'll make the first one. Set name, string name, semicolon. That's it. That's the only code we're gonna have, okay? So I can, if I want to, comment this method, which I guess I will. It's a mutator method. Okay. Setting name of the player. Someone's going to play some sports, so I'm going to set their name. Okay. I'm going to set their name for this. Okay. Interface methods, interface. Just put a little comment here about the way this works. It's not really a method. It's a method signature. Interface method signature. Because it's not really a method. Okay. Do not need a public / private / protected modifier. If you like. They are by default protected. They are. So if you don't want to put the word protected there, you don't have to. If you don't want to put the word public there, you don't have to. You can leave it out, for example, like we just did. Okay, so they're by default protected. They contain no body. In other words, no brackets or code. No curly brackets or code. Okay. Only the name and return type, which can be void, and parameters, if you need them. Some methods have no need for parameters. So again, it's like abstract methods, but without the word abstract. You don't need that word. Okay, so that's what a interface method signature looks like. Okay, it is extremely simple. Now, obviously, you guys are probably not going to type in that comment. All right, another method signature. Void set opponent name. Okay, so if we're playing sports, usually it's against someone, right? So we'll say this is my name in this sport, and this is my opponent. In whatever sport abstractly that we're talking about, whether it's hockey or football or baseball or chess or whatever sport we're talking about, there's us versus an opponent, okay? And then we're going to do one more method signature, Boolean. So this one will return a value. Did I win? So this will have no parameters, but it will return something to us. Did I win this particular sport? Because that's what sport is, right? Either you win or lose. So yes or no, did I win? And that's it. So if we took away the comment, this is all the code that this interface is going to have. And really, it's not even code itself. It's just a set of rules to follow. Now, this will come a little more clear as we start to piece this together and start to use an interface, okay? Because we're not using it yet. But I wanted to have this there, and I'm going to put in the comments for this as well. So that the set opponent method sets the name of the opponent, and did I win is this. And I wanted to just take a second to put that up on GitHub as well, so that you guys can access that. There we go. Commit. If you need that code or you need those comments for your example, okay? What's important here is understanding the concept of a interface, okay? So we're gonna go a little bit further on this. We're not done with this interface thing yet. We haven't obviously used it at all, but I wanted to just give you the basic beginning point of what an interface essentially is. So an interface is this set of rules to follow. Okay, because we're going to make another interface now. We're going to make 3 more. So I want you to right click, new Java interface. You'll notice now that it has moved up the list here. It used to be further down, but once you use something in NetBeans, it makes it more important for you. So make another interface. This one will be called hockey. And make another interface. This one will be called football. I want you to make interfaces called hockey and football with a capital F and a capital H. Notice again, they have a slightly different icon because they're interfaces, they're not classes. Okay, so hockey and football. Okay, let's start with hockey. Okay, we're going to put some method signatures into hockey. 2 of them. One of them, void method, score. Okay, and all I need for my parameter is which team. So give me the name of the team that scored. Somebody scored in hockey, so I just need their name. And then the other method is it's going to be the end of a period of hockey, and I need a parameter which period it was. Is it the end of period 1 or the end of period 2 or 3? And that's it. That's going to be our entire hockey interface, is just these 2 method signatures. Okay, I will put the comments in for those later, but for now, let's move on to football. For football, okay, we're going to make also 2 method signatures. Also method void score. However, in football, when you score, it's not just 1 point, it depends. So I'm going to give it 2 parameters, int points and string name. So maybe again, if we thought of like football with like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers just scored 3 points on a field goal, or the Calgary Stampeders scored 6 points on a touchdown, right? So you can adjust the points to that team. And in football, it's the end of, not a period in football, they call it a quarter in football. So which quarter is over in this game of football? And that's going to be our entire football interface. Is just these 2 method signatures. Okay, with 5 minutes left, we're going to do our final interface, and we're going to put it all together probably tomorrow. So right now we have a sports interface, a hockey interface, and a football interface. However, something interesting about interfaces, I'm going to put it here under hockey. Okay, so our hockey interface, think of it as it's enforcing the rules of hockey. The rules is what we said an interface could be thought of, right? An interface can be thought of as a set of rules. So hockey is enforcing the rules of hockey and those rules. So one thing we know about interfaces is interfaces can inherit from other interfaces. Okay. In other words, and follow the rules of other rules. Can do that. Okay. So what I mean by this is, although this is an interface, not a class, it can extend sports. Okay. Oops. So hockey can extend sports. So hockey is a set of rules, but it similarly follows the rules of sports. And I want you to do that to hockey and to football. Okay. So both hockey and football extend sports, which was the original interface we had, which had 3 method signatures in it. So there isn't actually a lot of code here, but I want to do one more interface. Right click, new Java interface. Now this one's not going to have anything to do with sports. This is going to have to do with school. And I want to create a permission form. It's a set of rules. A permission form is a set of rules. So this is going to be an interface called permission form, not a class, an interface. Okay, so real quick before we wrap up today, let's put in some method signatures. It just has 2. What do you do with a permission form? You sign it. That's it. And a Boolean method, you got it signed. Yes or no, it will return a Boolean whether or not you've got it signed. So I sign a permission form, and then this is what always your teacher asks you, have you got it signed? But with this permission form, we're also going to add a static final Boolean signed. As a Boolean, we're going to set it to be true. Okay? And we're going to make a second one that's basically identical. I'm just going to copy it and paste it. And I'm going to make this one not signed. Obviously, I'm going to make that one false. So this permission form interface got very little code in it. It's got 2 method signatures, but it also has these 2 method or these 2 class properties. So we'll put a little more talk into what those are tomorrow, and we'll start to put all of these together. So sports, hockey, football, and permission form. I will comment these and put these up onto GitHub for you guys. But that's going to be where I'm going to stop today with you 40S students. So I'll stop there, and I'm going to stop the recording. And I will get both the recording up